So, Rabbi Reuven Leigh, what do you think the impact of the coronavirus is having on Jewish practice and observance, both at the moment, but also in the long term?
Well, a lot of people are having to develop a new sense of how to be Jewish in their practice at home and not being able to rely on the communal structures, which maybe is their outlet for Jewish practice. And whereas for a lot of people, this could be quite daunting, they rely a lot on the sense of camaraderie, coming together, and even just on the technicalities of things, how to perform certain rituals and behave in a certain way. They don't really have to have any pre-thought. They can just turn up at the synagogue or at the Jewish center, and then they'll just be initiated into the practices and join along. So being at home requires people to be a little bit more, take a bit more ownership of their Jewish practice, which I think in the long term could prove to be something very beneficial. And it's quite interesting how, the way this has fallen just before Pesach, where essentially the Jewish practice is fundamentally in the home anyway. We're always told to do the Seder at home, but for many people, Seder at home means with family, with friends, and there's usually at least one person who knows what they're doing. And all the people at the Seder don't have to be clued in about what's going on, because there'll be someone who remembers this custom, this song, this way of doing things. And for this year, people have had to really think, how do I perform a Seder? How do I sing the song to that particular part? What is my family custom? How is this all done? And I think that extra attentiveness and focus could stand people in good stead in the future. It doesn't have to always be seen as this traumatic experience that we're all going to want to forget, but it could be a catalyst for something a bit stronger going forward.
So in a way, it's forcing people to be more proactive in their Jewishness, probably having to learn a little bit more as well. Is it also deepening their understanding, if you like, because we've been forced into our homes, the sort of this social isolation? Is it providing another insight into the relationship with the Almighty, for example? Is there any of that, or is it merely a learning process?
Well, it's like the flip side of a historic statement that was said in the time of Jewish assimilation, where it was Yehudi beitecha va'adam b'tzeitecha. So you're a Jew in the home, but you're a mensch. You're just a regular human being in the street. Whereas I think for a lot of people, their Jewish practice would have been Adam beitecha v'Yehudi b'beit hakneset. They're Jewish in the synagogue, or they're Jewish in the official places of Jewish worship, but their everyday life might be less permeated with Jewish practice. And I think it's a lot of it is the attentiveness to it. I think what's common now, people talk about mindfulness. That forethought of recognizing that if we're going to be in this for a few months, I'm not going to be able to get my weekly fix of Judaism by maybe going to a Shabbat dinner or going to a synagogue service. And if I'm going to be in this for 3-4 months, I better figure out, what does it mean to be Jewish? And I think that extra attentiveness and to think about what goes on in my home it can only be positive. Future.
What about your role as a rabbi? Does that change?
Oh, hugely. Till now, most of the focus has been on helping people prepare for Pesach. So Passover requires huge amounts of preparation with regards to food preparation and specific food items, which aren't always readily available. So we've been working very hard at making sure that anyone who needs the special foods, such as the matzah or the maror, or even a whole Pesach kit, we've been preparing those and sending those out to people. And that's really been our main focus. We've also been doing communal get-togethers over Zoom to try and make sure there's still a sense of community, and so people can check in with each other and find out how they're doing. And that's besides for standard welfare responsibilities, that everyone is making sure that everyone they know is well and being looked after, especially the elderly and more vulnerable members of the community. But the big question is going to be what's going to be after Pesach, because then, not knowing how long this is going to last for, we need to figure out a system about how to live our lives through these mediums of Zoom or Skype or whatever it's going to be, to enable people to get the benefits of the social interaction whilst being distanced. And to be honest, that is the beginning stages are now where we're thinking that through. You know, are we going to, I was thinking, we already did just before Pesach a Facebook Live cooking demo by one of our students who is at home in Montreal, and she did one of her family dishes for Passover. She did a Facebook Live. Lots of the members of our student community participated, and that was like a really nice way of interacting with each other. And we're going to be coming up with lots more ideas, hopefully, that will enable people to feel connected, whilst also feeling empowered to bring everything into their own homes.
Do you think if this continues for many months, which is the assumption, that it's going to affect actual practice? Because obviously, traditionally, as an Orthodox Jew, you have to have 10 men together to perform certain prayers. Synagogues, like churches and mosques and gurdwaras, are closed, so you can't meet there. You can't create that number 10, and the virtual existence doesn't help. So are there ways around that, particularly for traditional observance Judaism?
I think it's probably more challenging for people who live in larger Jewish communities where they'd be more accustomed to be praying 3 times a day with a minyan, with a group of people in a synagogue. In Cambridge, we're fortunate to get a minyan that get together on Shabbat, but it's not common during the week, especially outside of term time, to have a minyan. So we're already quite accustomed to praying at home by ourselves, and the people who have already been doing that for all of these years, I don't think will find the current climate to be difficult to adjust to, because it won't be so out of the ordinary. But I do imagine that people who live in larger Jewish communities are finding it much more peculiar and strange to be praying at home so much.
And what about the Chabad community, which is your own particular branch of Judaism? Mm-hmm. How's that coping with the coronavirus, not just here in the UK, but just generally thinking about the community around the world, and Israel, the States, and everywhere?
Well, the central Chabad community in Crown Heights in Brooklyn have been particularly affected by coronavirus, as is many in New York. New York City, New York State is very badly affected as an epicenter. And so many people who I'm familiar with, thank God no one particularly close, have been very sick, and some have passed. And it's been quite a traumatic experience in sort of, logging onto the community websites and just to find out who's the latest people who are unwell. And, I've been watching funerals over Zoom or on YouTube. The way that they've been doing the funerals has been driving through the community, and people come out onto their doorsteps to offer their last respects. And there's a video going behind, and it's strangely gripping. You would think there's nothing to see, but I sat there for a good half an hour just watching this car weaving its way through the community and seeing more people walking out on their doorsteps. And it was so sad to think that these people, many people, very prominent members of the community who had given so much to the community, were unable to have that last sort of respect of having a crowd at their funeral in the normal way. So people are struggling a lot with those experiences, and that will take time to process. The thing is, it's such an intense moment. It feels like this is not the time even to reflect upon what's going on, because you don't even know what's going to be happening tomorrow. But as you would expect, Chabad, besides for its large sort of central communities, has all the Chabad houses around the world. And there's been a tremendous amount of support amongst colleagues on our WhatsApp groups, on our email forums, figuring out ways that we can better support our communities through classes online, and through just making sure that everyone who needs help knows how to ask for it, and we know a way of bringing it to them in a safe way, that we don't endanger ourselves, our families, or even those other people. Like, for example, preparing meals for people is not always a supportive act, because it could be an act of spreading. So there has to be an understanding of the guidelines of the best way and the most efficient way to help people through this. And a lot of people will be suffering from huge amounts of anxiety, and besides for the sort of the isolation, the loneliness, but just the fear that comes with what's going on. And I think on a pastoral level, that has to start in effect now, and really trying to reach out to people to make sure that they don't succumb to huge amounts of fear and anxiety, which could be very debilitating. Because I think the mental health crisis that is going to develop for a lot of people is going to take a long time to overcome. So, you know, I do things in a pastoral way, but my wife Rachel is trained as a therapist. She's already doing online therapy for certain people, and trying to ensure that people have a route through this, and they know how to ask for help, instead of just looking at the four walls around them and thinking there's no one out there. The social distancing shouldn't be a way of limiting our social interaction in other forms. And I think that's a message we really have to get out to people.
Rabbi Reuven Leigh, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.